Andrew, Robinson, Nakamichi, and the soundbar community, you have forced me to do something I never thought I would have to do. Release a soundbar reaction video. Anyway, based on the activity around my last video, which made me acutely aware of the whole kerfuffle, I feel compelled to be den mother and bring a bit more sanity to the situation. I need to throw a bit of cold water on peculiar theories, attacks, and misplaced religious fervor around the Nakamichi dragon. Now, I know I poke at our friend Andrew for being fashionable and sounding really sultry in his videos.
And yeah, sure.
Having over 10 times my subscriber count and performing the 8th wonder of the world, which is having his wife help him full-time with their channel.
My second favorite thing of 2020 was getting to work with you. It was.
Putting silly Daniel aside, I think Andrew is insightful, makes great looking videos, is engaging without having to ham it up. And he churns out videos at an impressive pace. I know good and hard how difficult it is to put these videos together. My attitude towards Andrew is one of respect and admiration, not animosity. Let's level set that.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm pumped.
How about that Andrew Robinson Dragon review? I'm not aware of a review, especially in the audio space, that has been as consequential as that one. I'd say Nakamichi is quite aware of the content and its impact. My high-level take on the review is Andrew brought to light some very insightful points about the dragon, which are totally fair and deserve sunlight. However, many of his comments around sound quality I thought were extreme, misleading, and suggested at least a hint of respectfully. The points in commentary that I tend to agree with Andrew on are on build quality and features, though it extends to the sound stuff as well in a more limited way. Build quality. From the original Nakamichi hype videos, one would get the impression that the main unit is a metal tank that could withstand serious levels of punishment.
Equal reports of owners complaining of their bars arriving damaged. And this is surprising because Nakamichi says the dragon is housed in a one-piece stainless steel chassis.
In reality, as recognized by Andrew, its grill, which was supposed to be kind of this manufacturing wonder, is far too thin and prone to damage when all components were shipped in a single box. I think I was transparent on this in my reviews, where I showed off having 3 main units in my basement, with 2 of them having significant grill and body damage.
The dual subwoofers and 2 surrounds that come with the Dragon are significantly larger than most of the subs or surrounds typically included with other soundbars. And yeah, their size is impressive, but I wouldn't say that their construction is any better or worse than subs and surrounds that come with a lot of other soundbar systems.
I also agree with Andrew that the surrounds and sub build quality are not special. Rather, and I'd say this applies a bit more to the subs, they're just typical examples of build quality you should expect from flagship all-in-one box kits. The $4,000 did not seem to buy you much in the external materials category, which is regrettable. Though, to keep the main unit rigid and get it to its weight, Nakamichi had to use some robust materials on the inside. Now, I know I was very special for managing to accumulate 3 main units at one time when others were waiting months for their replacement. Nakamichi's response to this was that replacing non-limited edition units, the one I bought, was easier than limited editions. This was the issue for some, but I suspect there were a number of regular edition units that came damaged or were malfunctioning that did not get replaced nearly as quickly as mine. As a reviewer, I definitely got special treatment, which, to be fair, I put in thousands of hours and tens of thousands of dollars prior to that point to be treated special, if that makes you feel better. It's not my looks that did it. I think Nakamichi has wised up a bit and realized they need to ship components in separate packages. Andrew referenced the 15-minute setup time. claim.
And has a setup time of about 15 minutes or less, which is achievable. However, if you want to get the most out of the Dragon, including a more coherent sound from top to bottom, plan to set aside as much as an hour and be prepared to grab some tools for this setup.
You can get it set up in 15 minutes if you're in good shape and have lots of stamina, but you need to do significantly more work to get it sounding at a level that honors your investment.
You can put together an equally satisfying, easier to use, for sure, and a more feature-packed traditional home theater that wouldn't take up really any more space than the Dragon. For example, this Onkyo Klipsch home theater that currently retails for less than $3,000.
I think he knows the answer. I'm not sure why he went there. Anyway, I know it's hard to believe, but there are folks that are not interested in making their sound equipment a permanent installation. They don't want to run wires in ceilings and walls, nor mount things to walls, and probably really don't want big towers sitting around, which he showed in his example. In addition, from what I can gather from years of comments, is that there's a fair bit of domestic pressure not to go that direction. Also, it involves the added complexity of a receiver, which, it's scary looking with tons of holes in it, and it's kind of big and needs to be hidden. If you have nowhere to hide it, it's a problem. You don't have that problem with a soundbar. With the Dragon, you just have to plug things in, which everyone can do. When you want it gone, you unplug it and drag it away.
There is a USB input, though it is only for firmware updates, which must be carried out using a USB stick due to the Dragon's complete lack of Wi-Fi or Ethernet connectivity.
So no Wi-Fi or Ethernet. There is an app which lets the system touch the internet theoretically, but firmware updates still must be done with USB, which many people will not bother to do. And even worse, you can really screw up your system if you do it incorrectly. Not having the option for network-based playback for music is annoying. However, you can add that with numerous devices that can plug into one of the 3 HDMI inputs or other various ports.
Having all of the channels in the world doesn't automatically equal a better surround sound performance.
Channel count. I think Andrew and Never Enough Tech would agree that packing a whole bunch of channels into 4 or 5 components is not the way to do it. I think the most straightforward way to transform sound and delight the more enthusiastic customers is for these soundbar systems to offer a tier where you can get wide physical separation in front and in back and improve from there. I know this moves closer to get a traditional home theater system.
First thing we noted was how loud and frankly brash this system sounded.
One critical step in making the sound less brash is letting the system warm up. When I first get a system, I play rain and thunder sounds on the thing for nearly 48 hours in the basement where it doesn't really bug anyone, before I even bother to start making first impressions. I'd say the quality of sound when I start the process to when I go down and fire up a banger 48 hours later, there's an immediate noticeable maturation from the unpacked state. I agree that this is an aggressive system. Everything about it would suggest that, but I fear that Andrew did not take the time to run it through. So I'm not totally surprised by his initial impressions, which is what I think the review was based on. That being said, I'm in agreement that the tools to allow the customer to find peak sound relative to modern home theater tools are, well, he used phraseology fitting for a Never Enough Tech video.
But it also takes its cues from the Old Testament.
The sound tools are underdeveloped for enthusiasts who want to do fancy things like they would with a receiver, and underdeveloped for lay people as there is no auto room tuning feature to help manage the very complex and temperamental Dragon system. But there are more manual sound adjustments than you would find on just about any other competitor. Okay, I want to talk about the Ghostbuster story and Andrew and Christie's first impressions of the Dragon sound.
Volume of 30, straight out of the box. And seeing as how most AVR's volume of 30 out of 100 is kind of quiet, I didn't think to adjust it. And boy, if we weren't awake before, the Dragon slapped us right in the face to be sure we were paying attention.
So when getting to know a system, I often pull out my Blade Runner 2049 Dolby Atmos Blu-ray. Right out of the gate, while the Warner Brothers logo was still spinning around, it gave me a bang I was not physically prepared for. It shook the of me in a good way.
Like, dude, pay attention. This is gonna be different.
I want to prepare you. Your first hit of this system will likely be a bit bewildering because the AMT tweeters are going to come at you hot. The system has not been broken in. You have certainly not properly set the levels, and your ear is simply not yet acclimated to the system, which I think takes a little acculturation. One way to judge the quality of a system is, am I happier or less happy with this system as I keep on listening over the course of time? With the Dragon, my attitude ascended. If Andrew and Christy made all their observations in a time span of less than a week, and I suspect it was closer to an afternoon because they're trying to run a business, they simply weren't patient enough with the system nor gave it enough time to mature to make a decisive verdict. I would say maturation time on the Dragon is more critical than any other system I've reviewed. Is it terrific that this system is, let's say, prickly out of the box? No, but it's not a fatal flaw either.
On its own, the main bar does not play much below 300 Hz, regardless of where you set its crossover point. This means that all of the bass, including the low mid-range, plays through the subwoofers.
Andrew's claim is that there is a major drop-off at 300 Hz, which makes the Dragon a huge bar that ironically can't get low. Big dude with a tenor voice. Mr. Caleb over there from Digital Trends claimed the decibel roll-off happened more dramatically after 160 Hz.
The 3-inch drivers in the main unit and surround speakers aren't meant to produce much bass. They start to roll off at about 160 Hz or so.
Nakamichi's claim is for the preservation of mids and highs, decisions were made to not make the bar very low frequency potent, and they purposefully stuck mid woofers instead of full range woofers on the bar.
The tiny Bose 600 surprisingly hits 100 Hz. The ARC, it hits 70. Why am I bringing this up? Well, this means that if the handoff between the Dragon sub and bar isn't seamless, certain instruments, sound effects, and even vocal ranges like mine are going to be split between two speakers, occupying two very different locations in your room. This happens a lot with the Dragon, and it ain't good.
In all fairness to Nakamichi, this is not meant to be a standalone bar, and comparing bass performance with bars like the ARC and Bose 600 is a strange move. I am without a proper tool to measure the frequency response curve, though I'm accumulating what I need because of you people. Yes, you heard me, you people. However, I performed some crude measurements of certain frequencies and did not really get the sense that decibels dramatically dropped off immediately after 300 Hz. And I'd point out that Andrew's measurements showed a recovery probably in the 160 Hz range before then truly rolling off. So I think the notion about the bar being useless below 300 Hz is probably overstated, and similarly, I think the claim that with the new 12-inch subwoofer only going up to 200 Hz, that there will be this comical gap in sound in that range is probably very silly. Also, on a more practical note, I don't recall the crowd pitchforking that there is a major weak spot in the 100 to 300 Hz range before the AR review. Maybe I missed it. Moreover, Andrew, who is a fan of the Samsung Q900 series, and I agree there is a good argument that the Q990C is the best or amongst the best values in the land, never measured the Q990D bar alone. Another bar meant to be coupled with a sub, which, if he measured, would have allowed him to make similar attacks about that system. Observation, Andrew sounded as sultry as ever on the Dragon, even if his voice did span subwoofer and bar. Those two components worked it out delightfully.
Vocal ranges like mine are going to be split between two speakers, occupying two very different locations in your room. This happens a lot with the Dragon, and it ain't good.
Even the Dragon couldn't mess up his voice. Andrew, maybe move your subs. Play with your Dragon. I noted in my Dragon review that there is a lot of top-end clarity, and this seems to be an opinion that Andrew shares.
The Dragon's upper mid-range and treble are very clear. The system has zero issues making a statement when it comes to detail and, to a larger extent, intelligibility, especially through the drivers dedicated to the center channel.
Anyway, I felt it was a critical differentiator from the Q990C at the time, which I have, up until that point, termed the king of soundbars.
Moving beyond the immediate visceral reactions when this system first gives you the business, I think what's really going to catch your attention are these AMT tweeters. They are sharp and take detail to, let's say, an uncommon level.
The imagery evoked when comparing the Sea and Dragon head-to-head was the Sea highs sounded squished, compressed, and the Dragon highs spacious and detailed, like a more elaborate sandwich. This scored a lot of points with me back then, and I stand by it.
You may have noticed that there is no system-wide dialogue mode. That's because Nakamichi, I suspect, is confident enough in the center channel to deem it unnecessary. I don't think I've heard such intelligible speech while maintaining what I want to call full sound integrity with a generous dose of lower mids and bass resonance, which with lesser systems would likely lead to muddiness.
The Dragon center focus is being localized, if not a little beamy. Dialogue definitely hits you front and center, which for some of you will be a very good thing.
The other Andrew complaints about forwardness and harshness I sense can be addressed to a large degree with center channel volume reduction and treble reduction. I believe there's a lot of dialogue clarity without having to set these parameters high, which, if they are high, may lead to uncomfortable listening as the scene goes from soft to loud.
Now, when it comes to dynamics, the Dragon achieves God-tier impact quickly, and if you're not careful, without any warning.
About those rapid volume shifts, I get where Andrew's coming from, and I think it's one of the edgier parts of the Dragon that is certainly not for everyone. But it's probably the kind of thrill Dragon perspective buyers are seeking. If you have noise constraints like you share walls, the Dragon is just simply not for you. A non-starter, I think. Nonetheless, I think over time you learn what the correct volume is and you acclimate to the decibel shifts. Again, I'm not convinced that Andrew and Christy would offer the same opinion if they were committed to the Dragon for weeks rather than hours or days, which was my impression.
So let's put down the obvious demo materials and focus on non-tentpole films with legacy mixes. I'm talking True HD and Dolby Digital. The Dragon becomes a scattered mess with no real front-to-back coherence, never mind overhead effects.
Andrew called out audio format as being an important performance indicator. This applies to many systems. I've mentioned this most recently on my Core 200 review. If you're looking to be amazed, your best bet is 3D audio. If you're watching more casually, let's say an older sitcom, perhaps in 5.1, is the sound so unorganized you won't be able to ignore it? No, though it may be you choose to adjust surround levels based on content type.
I don't care what the evidence says. I didn't kill him. Swear to me. I swear to you, Michael.
I suggest using the favorite buttons on the Dragon remote to quickly toggle to your preferred settings.
Honestly, aside from a handful of Dolby Atmos test tracks and a few key scenes from films like Top Gun Maverick, I wasn't all that impressed by the Dragon's height effects.
And here is where I issue my first official Dragon sound diss. I believe the Sonos Arc with the 300s, sure, let's give it the dual subs, and that would make it the same form factor, largely. Just talking 3D audio effects has higher highs. The Era 300s are just a game changer for spatial audio, where the Dragon surrounds aren't.
3D audio performance. Given the claims about Pro Atmos and DTS, the overall height performance does not regularly reach best in class. You definitely get them, and they're regularly impressive, but my go-tos for peak 3D audio placement are the Sony Home Theater Quad and the Sonos Immersive Set with the Era 300s.
Horizontal dispersion sounded and measured quite poorly. Even moving a foot or two off-center results in as much as a 3 decibel drop in energy, which caused a lot of mixes to sound far more localized than I would have expected from a bar this size.
In terms of horizontal presence, I certainly felt surrounded on the kind of high-flying content meant to make you feel surrounded, no question. You know, the Dunes, Transformers, Blade Runner, Mad Max. Though Andrew has a point that volume does change noticeably as you move your ears up and down, left and right. Nonetheless, the lateral and longitudinal motion effects are striking, and presence in back and on the sides are substantial. Though room shape obviously plays a role, and don't forget, you can always adjust the relative volumes on forward and side firing channels to get the sound closer to your expectation.
Not gonna say that the Dragon can't hit 20 Hz, but I don't believe it hits it with any authority, and definitely not in keeping with how most subwoofers report their frequency response.
Bass performance. The 20 Hz claim is a naughty claim, and Nakamichi should not have made it, even if it's technically valid. Nakamichi made a curious choice of going with 8-inch woofers, which, even though there's 4 of them, they were not going to output the kind of low sound that one would be led to expect given the marketing and price. That being said, I don't think the subs are irredeemable. They do offer a lot of meat down there with some decibels. That is rare amongst the competition. And the subs can be set in a way that genuinely contributes to an elite soundbar kit overall sound. Are they remarkably nimble or notable in home theater land? Obviously not, and Nakamichi knows that customers know this is not true by offering what appears to be a dramatically enhanced option, which reportedly can plunge to 19 Hz. And I suspect with far more confidence than the 8-inch opposing woofers can hit 20 Hz. But that remains an open question. Full disclosure, Nakamichi did make me aware of the new subs in late June, well before Andrew released his video. So any notion that they panicked and quickly conceived a new product in response to the Andrew review is untrue. In fact, the subs were conceived directly after a January 2024 survey of current owners that led to these figures. Nakamichi told me they were built to similar specs to that of high-end home theater products. Nakamichi is planning on sending me the 2 units, so I'll be able to test the 2 12-inch configuration as well as the 2 12/2/8 configuration, which may be more relevant to those that already have the 8s.
You can do as good or better for less by picking up any of the other options I just mentioned. And sweet Mother Teresa, on the hood of a benzo, is this doubly true when it comes to listening to music.
Music performance. It's not my favorite music machine. Quite frankly, there are some song and setting combos that fall really flat, particularly the old folky stuff from before 2000. If you want to listen to music, it's best served over HDMI playing a 3D audio format. I think there are some quality experiences to discover with those constraints. Gonna comment on price. As with every product on Earth, after a certain price point, you start to get limited returns. Is the sound 4 times as good as the C, which you can grab for $1,000? Of course not, but that's not how this works when you're shopping for tippity products, or at least what you think is tippity. The best sound per dollar is probably a $15 Bluetooth speaker sold on the 4th page of Amazon results. Why don't you all just buy that? For many of you, the performance per dollar return peaks at around $1,000. Others, maybe $2,500. For a few of you, it may be $4,000. The $4,000 is too much argument is true to the extent that it applies to you.
Simplicity of setup, versatility, better physical and sonic fit for most rooms, modern features like Wi-Fi, AirPlay, smart home connectivity, seriously everything, overall sound quality across the widest range of source material, and even cinematic thrills at more everyday volumes. The Dragon scores dead last for me.
This might surprise you, but I think Andrew dropped some wisdom in there for a wide swath of customers, even if he shared my opinions about the sound. This system is aggressive and takes some coaxing. It's huge and lacks some common features you may care about a lot. I also agree with Andrew that the notion that this is a home theater killer is a completely ridiculous claim by Nakamichi. I think they do need to be more careful in their language. My advice, given the customer mood, is that they should just keep home theater out of their language and market the Dragon as the baddest soundbar on the planet. And yeah, it's going to cost you. I think these claims are appealing and hold merit. Apologetics on the cost just needs to stop. Where I will push back on Andrew's dead last assessment is for the soundbar enthusiasts. Those even bothering to consider the Dragon, which is probably not a huge pool, but there is a pool, I'm pretty certain are looking for a product that is pushing the boundaries of soundbar land. For this subset, the notion that this is a dead last product is ridiculous. My 9 months of experience is that the sound can be coaxed and matured into something special that extends well beyond being really loud. There is detail, dynamics, spaciousness, and a breadth of frequency that taken together comes much closer to rising above the competition than falling below. Andrew and I agree there are some serious lows, but we don't agree that there are some serious highs, which will differentiate our recommendations. I'll freely admit these highs are not as accessible as other systems' highs. It takes patience, time, and some fluidity with the system to get there. And for those that put a whole lot of value on those highs, this system starts to make some serious sense. Or at the very least, it's far from dead last. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it. I'm grateful for those that take the time to watch my videos. Gonna wrap this up. Give me your thoughts, good and hard, and subscribe so I can be just 1/10 as popular as Andrew. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.